And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Rugby Review. This past week, there was quite a bit of action that took place in the rugby universe, so I'm going to do the best I can to get everyone caught up on all of the action that took place. So to give everyone a little bit of an idea of what we're going to be going over today, we're going to start off with the Greatest Rivalry Tour that kicked off this past week. So we're going to go through the games that were a part of that, and then we're going to move into New Zealand's NPC Rugby League, and then we will finish off with South Africa's Currie Cup. So let's dive into the Greatest Rivalry Tour, and then we will move on from there. So one of the first things I wanted to go over for the Greatest Rivalry Tour was just simply the match schedule. So if there was anybody out there that was like me and did not happen to know that there were going to be 8 games a part of this tour, this slide is for you. So I did not know that there were going to be 4 franchise matches in addition to 4 international test games. So this was a very lovely surprise over this last week to see the franchise matches kick off. And so match 1 took place August 7th, and that game was between the Stormers and the All Blacks. 4 days later, the All Blacks took on the Sharks in Durban. Match 3 out of the franchise matches, 3 out of the 4 franchise matches will take place today. The All Blacks will be playing against the Bulls in Pretoria. And then in 10 days, on August 25th, the 4th and final franchise match will take place where the Lions will take on the All Blacks in Joburg. In addition to the 4 franchise matches, there's also the 4 test games that have been very well advertised. Now, the international games start next weekend, August 22nd, where South Africa and New Zealand will be playing against each other at Ellis Park in Johannesburg. The following weekend, August 29th, the second test match will take place, and that game will be played in Cape Town. The following weekend, September 5th, the third test match will take place. New Zealand and South Africa will be back in Johannesburg, but they will be at FNB Stadium instead of Ellis Park. And then the 4th and final game in the entire tour series will take place September 12th, except both teams will be flying to the United States and playing in Baltimore. And if anybody who may be watching this video is going to be in Baltimore, drop a comment. Let me know. I'm going to be going to the September 12th game, so it'll be kind of fun to bump into somebody that may or may not be watching this video. So again, this is the complete match schedule for the entire tour. And again, 2 franchise matches took place this past week. So we're going to go through both matches real quick. And so the first match, again, was the Stormers All Blacks game. So here are the final results for the Stormers All Blacks game. The All Blacks ended up winning this game by a score of 38-21 over the Stormers. And if I'm going to be honest, in my opinion, I don't think this scoreline gives enough credit to the Stormers, because the Stormers were playing great. Going into halftime, there was definitely this nervous anxiousness kind of coming from the All Blacks, and a lot of confidence coming from the Stormers. But unfortunately for the Stormers, in the second half, their backup scrum half had gotten injured. So I should mention that in the first half, the Stormers' starting scrum half got injured. the substitute scrum half had to come in after like 3 or 4 minutes, and then I think Duvanacha got injured like at the 55 minute mark and had to come out. And it was unfortunate for the Stormers to have both scrum halves go down injured because the Stormers were playing great. Well organized offensively, well organized defensively. The Stormers were able to move and find holes in the All Blacks defense and were really putting a lot of good pressure on the All Blacks. But again, the injury to Duvanacha in the second half really hurt the Stormers from an offensive standpoint. They just didn't seem to have that same front foot movement. They didn't have that same continuity that they always did. And, All Blacks probably also were getting a good earful at halftime that they didn't want to be that team on the wrong side of history. So the All Blacks definitely came out like a different team in the second half and played much better in the second. But again, this was a really good game played by the Stormers and definitely was quite the wake-up call for the All Blacks where, despite being an international team, you cannot take a professional squad lightly, otherwise they will win. And so with that being said, let's move into match 2, and here's match 2's results, and I think the All Blacks got the message that if they don't take these games seriously, professional sides in South Africa will potentially win. So, the All Blacks, much stronger team, played much better in match 2 versus match 1. Defensively, so much better, so much more organized. Did not allow the Sharks to score at all, and the All Blacks were able to put up over 50 points on the Sharks as well. So, the All Blacks got the message in the first match. Got to take these games seriously, otherwise not good things will happen. All Blacks made their adjustments and really put a good showing out there and really gave it to the Sharks in match 2. So, those were the first 2 matches in the Greatest Rivalry Tour. Again, match 3, which has the All Blacks playing against the Bulls, will be taking place today. So next week, we'll be going through the final results for the Bulls All Blacks. And then I would be remiss if I did not mention that South Africa, the international team, played a test game against the Argentines. And this was a really fun game to watch as well. This was I guess I have to do a better job of proofreading what ChatGPT says, or what ChatGPT writes down on these pictures here, because instead of South Africa, it's Sioux Africa. Anyway, really great game played between Argentina and South Africa. This was almost a game of 2 halves. Argentina played much better in the first half, and then South Africa, after halftime, was able to get the momentum on their side and built the 7-point lead that they had at the end of the game. If it wasn't for a last-second knock-on by Argentina, maybe the game ended up tied, maybe not. Who knows? But great first half by Argentina, and then South Africa put in a great shift in the second half to build and maintain their lead, and ended up, obviously, earning the victory. So that was all of the international Greatest Rivalry Tour games that was to be watched last week. And now we're going to be moving into New Zealand's NPC Rugby League. So over this past weekend, round 2 of New Zealand's NPC took place. And there are a lot of good games, a lot of close games, and some not good, not close games. So round 2 kicked off with a game between North Harbor and Counties Manico. North Harbor, again, looked really, really good in round 1 against Tasman and continued that momentum into round 2 and absolutely hammered Counties. North Harbor ended up winning this game by a score of 59-19 over Counties. Again, I'm saying it now, said it last week. North Harbor is a team to watch out for. They're looking really strong, very organized, in shape, and they look like they're going to be able to hang and compete with a lot of the top teams in the competition this year. Moving on to the second game of round 2 was an incredible game between Taranaki and Waikato. This was a super high scoring game, very much, well, I almost want to say a back and forth game, but it ebbed and flowed. So one team would have the momentum, and then the other team would wrestle it away, and it was just kind of going back and forth until, the end of the game, where Waikato was able to get their lead, maintain their lead, and hold their lead for the victory over Taranaki. Game 3 was another high-scoring game. Actually, the next 2 games had the exact same score, interestingly enough. But Game 3 was between Auckland and Wellington. Again, high-scoring game that saw Auckland just edge out a victory over Wellington by a score of 31, Auckland scored 34 versus Wellington's 31. So Auckland, tough loss, round 1 against Canterbury, bounced back very nicely to have a tough win over Wellington and got a bonus point, and got a scoring bonus point out of it. Moving on to the next game, Game 4 was between Bay of Plenty and Northland. Good win for Bay of Plenty, tough loss for Northland. This was the exact same score as the Auckland-Wellington game, but we saw Bay of Plenty winning this game over Northland by a score of 34-31. So both teams do walk away with scoring bonus points, and Northland does walk away with a losing bonus point, so not the worst thing in the world, but, if you're Northland and Wellington, obviously you want to win the game, but you walk away with a couple points regardless. Now, Game 5 of Round 2 is what I would have thought to be one of the marquee matchups of the weekend, in addition to the Taranaki, Waikato, Otago, Canterbury game, but this was not the case. On paper, it looked like it was supposed to be a good game, but in actuality, this was a one-sided game that saw Hawke's Bay absolutely dominate, and for lack of a better term, saw Hawke's Bay crush Tasman by a score of 50-19. I think after 2 rounds, I think Hawke's Bay is probably the favorite to win the NPC this year, just because they've put up 50 points 2 weeks in a row, and both games they've played in both rounds, just absolute domination by Hawke's Bay. Now, round 1, Hawke's Bay kind of took their foot off the gas in the second half and allowed Wellington to get back into the game. Not the case this week. Hawke's Bay was able to maintain their discipline, maintain their defensive effort, and kept Tasman from coming back into the game, and kept Tasman from having at least a try scoring bonus point. So the slight improvement that needed to be made by Hawke's Bay to have a full 80-minute performance, that was made, the adjustment was made, and again, just another really strong blowout performance by Hawke's Bay. Now, our second to last match of round 2 in the NPC featured a match between Otago and Canterbury. Now, this game had a little extra spice and seasoning to it, And what I mean by that is the Renfrew, hopefully I pronounced that right, the Renfrew Shield was up for grabs in this match. You'll have to pardon me, I forget off the top of my head what the Renfrew Shield is, but it's, a little extra competition within the competition, so to speak. So this is a game between two of the better teams in the NPC. This is a rematch of last year's final, and on top of that, the Renfrew Shield was up for grabs in this game. So there was a lot riding on this game, a lot of drama going into this game, and it was a game that saw Canterbury edge out a victory over Otago by a score of 19-15. So Canterbury does end up getting the victory here, but does not get a scoring bonus point. In addition, Otago does get a losing bonus point, but does not get a scoring bonus point. So, a little bit more of a defensive game between Otago versus Canterbury, but still very dramatic, high intensity, really good game played between two very well coached, very well playing teams. And to finish out round two, after round one, Manawatu and Southland were both of the teams at the bottom of the table. So, very important game for both of these two teams. A, both are looking for their first victory of the year, and B, you don't want to be the team sitting at the bottom of the table. So it was a very high-scoring game between both teams here that saw Manawatu actually just get the victory by 1 point over Southland. Manawatu won this game by a score of 36-35 over Southland. So this was a great way to end a week of a lot of good competition, a lot of close games here. The Manawatu-Southland game, very high scoring. Both teams get bonus points. In addition, Southland does walk away with a losing bonus point. So, we'll see what the results will bring in round three, but this was a really good second round for the NPC. Now let's take a look at the overall standings after round two in the NPC. So with two very dominant victories by Hawke's Bay, they are sitting at the top of the table, followed by Waikato and Canterbury. Hawke's Bay, Waikato, Canterbury are the only two teams with a 2-0 record right now. Everybody from North Harbour all the way down to Manawatu is 1-1 right now. So there's just it's a very close competition through two rounds, which is fun and exciting to see, and it will be very interesting and very exciting to see how and which teams gain and lose momentum and what teams will be moving up and down the leaderboard here as time goes on, as the rounds go on. Let's take a peek at the round 3 fixtures. So round 3 in the NPC looks as followed. We kick off the week with Wellington versus North Harbour, followed by a Northland Taranaki matchup. Third game of the week will feature Canterbury versus Bay of Plenty. Then we move to Auckland versus Hawke's Bay. So we'll see if Auckland can hand Hawke's Bay its first loss of the regular season. And then we move to Manawatu versus Otago. And then we have a Southland Waikato matchup. And then to finish out the round 3 fixtures, we will have Counties Manukau versus Tasman. So again, this is the round 3 fixtures, which are taking place this weekend, and it will be very exciting to see what the full results will be for round 3. Now moving on, we're going to be finishing up with the Currie Cup here. So Currie Cup is in round 4, or last week was round 4, I should say, and round 4 kicked off with what I thought was going to be the marquee matchup of the week, because it featured the Greekos and the Lions, and after round 3, Greekos and the Lions were the top 2 ranked teams. So I was eyeballing this game very much and thought this was going to be probably the best game of the weekend. Didn't end up being the best game of the weekend, but still a pretty good game nonetheless. But the Greekos ended up playing much better than the Lions did, and the Lions tried to use a second half comeback to come in and try to win, but strong effort by the Greekos kept the Lions from having too much of a comeback. Certainly the Greekos kept the Lions from having a scoring bonus point. So Greekos ended up winning this game by a score of 31-19. Game 2 was the closest match of the weekend. The Bulls were very close to securing their first victory of the season, but it was not meant to be, unfortunately, for the Bulls. So the Bulls ended up playing the Pumas, where the Pumas ended up securing the victory over the Bulls by a score of 33-31. So, Bulls did not end up winning the game, but they do walk away with at least a losing bonus point. So they do have some form of point total this week, unlike last week. Moving on to the third game, featured a matchup between the Sharks and Boland, where the Sharks ended up winning this game by a score of 19-12 over the Boland Cavaliers. And then to finish round 4 in the Currie Cup, there was a matchup between the Stormers and the Cheetahs, where the Cheetahs were able to edge out a victory over the Stormers by a score of 31-26. So it was a lot of close games, a lot of fun, close competitive games to watch as well. So let's take a look at the overall standings for round 4 in the Currie Cup. And so after the events and the results of round 4, we have the Greekos plus the Cheetahs sitting at the top of the table, both of which have a 3-1 record. And then you know that this is a really, really good competition when every single team from the first-ranked team all the way down to the 7th spot are in a competition for the top 4 seeds. So you got the Greekos, Cheetahs, Lions, Cavaliers, Stormers, and Sharks all in a position to compete for the top 4 seeds to try to move on to the semifinals. I don't know if the Bulls are completely out of it, but they are certainly going to have to win the next 3 rounds if the Bulls want to have any hope of trying to make a push for the top 4 and trying to secure a spot in the semifinals. But as of right now, it's the top 7 seeds in the Currie Cup that are all vying for a position in the top 4 of the standings to try to move on to the next round, or the next phase of the Currie Cup. And with all that being said, let's quickly take a look at round 5 fixtures for the Currie Cup. So we start with the Lions versus Boland, followed by the Greekos versus the Sharks. The third game of the weekend will be between the Pumas and the Stormers, and then we will finish out round 5 with the Bulls versus the Cheetahs. So we'll see if the Bulls can get their first victory and then kind of muddy up the waters a little bit, so to speak. So that's it for this week in the Rugby Review. Again, if you made it this far in the video, it's greatly appreciated. If you could, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you know anybody that's interested in getting a quick update on rugby events from around the world, please feel free to forward them this episode. And I hope everybody enjoys the rugby being played this weekend. And we will talk again, and I will see you all next week. Have a good one.